All right, guys, this is Crazy Kevin, and I'm here with John Gooden. John, how we doing?
Doing good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man, no problem. John, you were just working the most recent card. How was it?
Good. Always a good trip to Las Vegas, getting to work with couple legends as well, and Cruz and Bisping. But actually, starting to find my feet in Vegas. It's an interesting one because obviously, it's a long way from home, and we always see Las Vegas as this party town. But for me, it's very much where I work these days, and I'm getting to find out what the locals do, and it's becoming a place that I'm really enjoying visiting, not just for work and the fight stuff, but it's a cool spot.
Interesting. So what's like a daily work week for you? Like what do you have to go through in order to get prepared in order to go through a fight card?
Well, if you can take yourself back to when you were at school, that is essentially, apart from the classroom surroundings, that's pretty much what it looks like. So, real quick, I'll fly in typically quite late on a Tuesday, and I'll then be up at, try and get as many hours sleep as I can with the jet lag. But yeah, it's up at normal kind of time. And around 11 o'clock that morning, we'll start fighter meetings, and they are solid until maybe 3, 4 o'clock. So pretty intense. After that, I've got to, if I haven't already had a workout, I'll try and get a workout. This time around, I was lucky I found a little jiu-jitsu class. So I went and did that on Wednesday evening, then back to the books. Then Thursday is a bit of a dark day for me. So it's then just crushing as much research as I can, whatever needs to be done that I haven't already figured out. Friday mornings will be the weigh-ins. So I'll go and host the weigh-ins. Might do a little production meeting after as well, and then just race to get the notes done again as much as I can, going through because it's not just the fighter research, which is the bit I enjoy the most and the most important part, right? But when you get to the UFC level, there's so many program elements, like so many items, and there's a whole running order to the show. So you have to make sure you have all of the beats of the show down and write the scripts and be prepared for whatever they're going to throw at you. So that's what takes a lot of the time during fight week. And then Saturday, depends on how early or late the show is. I might again try and get a mini workout in and go see the team and call some fights.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's a lot going on for sure. Now, when it comes to your fighter research, like how much time are you putting into certain fighters that are on like the prelims versus the main card?
Well, actually, I think the main card fighters, the narratives and the kind of built-in amount of like information that I have is already present. But then and I enjoyed learning the stories about the newcomers, I should say. So yeah, the prelim fighters, typically if they're making a debut, then it's the journey of discovery because we don't really know them, right? So no one has, Brendan, John hasn't, or Megan or whoever it might have been, they haven't spoken about this athlete as they walk out. So now's the time to really find out what's important about their story. Whereas Marcin Tybura, or Tai Tuivasa, it's more the narrative of where their career's at and what the stakes are, potentially. There's always something that's gone in someone's camp more recently. It's good to get that fresh information. But what do we lead with? Probably a slightly different lead to the main card guys and gals to those on the prelims.
Nice. Now, when you're doing your fighter research, there's fighters from all over. What is the hardest name for you when you were first trying to figure it out to pronounce?
Mongolian names.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have a couple of like letters that they have so Dana Batgarel is how it's spelled, but the way he says it is entirely different. It's
Right.
like there's no L. It's like Batkaref. But then none of us are going to be able to do that justice, and it would just confuse people. So sadly, it doesn't get done. And I would just like to say, my esteemed colleague John Anik is not the only one who cares deeply about how names are pronounced. And I go to great lengths, and I actually work outside of the UFC and have done a little bit with triathlon. I've done some stuff in the Olympics, and the guys at the UFC really do care about this more than anywhere else I've been to. Like no one else. I'm actually sometimes helping dictate the workflow in order to find out how people want their name pronounced, because we are sticklers for it in the UFC. We care for it. there are differences, like American English pronunciation of foreign names. Like you'll just hear me say things different to the way that John and Brendan do. Even the name John, people like John, but an American will pronounce that differently. So when we start pronouncing French, German, Polish names, we sound like we're all over the place, but we're all doing our very best.
Right. No, fair enough. Now, you mentioned a couple of times that you're doing a couple workouts and you've done some jujitsu. How long have you been training jujitsu for now?
Just jiu-jitsu. Well, I started MMA, or trying to get into them, about 2009. So with that, I think, yeah, I think I was probably, yeah, I did. I took a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes alongside Muay Thai classes before I found an MMA class around that kind of, no, that would have been earlier than that. Sorry, yeah, 2007, maybe, something like that.
Wow.
But that doesn't do justice to my, that would sound like I've been in this a long time and should be good. That is not the case, my friend.
Right.
I am very bad, but that's down to lack of consistency. I had a very unfortunate injury, which took me off the mats for about 5 years. But yes, I've enjoyed my that part of my martial arts journey. But I was on the mats since I was 7 years old, so it gets worse. That's like 39 years of on and off martial arts experience to have a black belt in nothing.
Fair enough. So I was watching a video of you rolling with Khamzat. What was going through your head when you were doing that one?
Well, you'll know this is a martial artist, and it's always a very tricky, especially with grappling. Well, no, it's actually more serious if you're doing MMA sparring, which I'm glad to say I don't do any longer.
Right.
But like, how do I enter into it? How do I enter into this? Because if I go hard and set the pace fast, like I was under no illusion, I'm not getting a position on a professional athlete, particularly someone like Khamzat, who's an incredible grappler. He's a brilliant striker too, but grappling really is his standout. So it's going in is like, well, what do I do here? And then he's pretty, he wasn't like ferocious. He's just creative and had his way with me. So yeah, it's just swimming upstream. So then I'm super competitive and prideful. And when someone's shit talking you as they're grappling you as well, you guys have only seen, the highlights, or the lowlights, I should say. So when you're getting a position, you're like, oh, or you get out of something, you're like, oh, thank God I survived that. Oh no. And then he's talking about your purple belt and how he should like fight your coach as a result. It was hilarious. But yeah, shortly after that, I was sparring with one of his guys and had this guy in a pretty tight triangle, and he went to step over the triangle and basically axe kicked me in the face. And that's why you see me with my eye swelled shut. It was I could not believe it. For the rest of the film, you'll see that I've got this swollen eye.
Right.
So it was an eventful morning on the mats at All Stars with Khamzat.
Yeah, definitely seems like it. Yeah, he's definitely an interesting guy, that's for sure. Now, when you're at the cage, how close really are you? Like, are you close enough where like sweat or blood has ever hit you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's what we're there for.
Right.
Take a piece of DNA home, a little bit of sweat, snot, blood, whatever it might be, all about it. Yeah, I mean, the UFC setup is obviously a little bit more elaborate because they've got a bit more real estate. But yeah, even back in the day, there would be a little desk pushed up against the apron, if you will. And there you go. Every now and then there's been a few splodges of blood, which I'm looking down now. I've got stacks of old notes. I'm sure in there, if you were to swipe some DNA, we'd be able to find out whose it was.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, with that being said, too, when you're sitting that close, how loud are the punches and kicks? And then on top of that, too, like Joe Rogan mentioned when the Conor McGregor and Aldo fight was happening, that he could see the pressure like in Jose Aldo. Is there ever like times where like fighters are coming in and you can kind of see that pressure on them too?
Yes, I'm sure there is. I would say the difference between the play-by-play role and the color commentary role is they are the things that so the color commentators should naturally be looking and be dialed in for way more of that stuff. Whereas when a fighter's walking in, I'm probably trying to get my head around telling the story and being directed by with various cues, because the starts of the fights, it's a little traffic heavy. So the producers would be in my ear a little bit more. Whereas I know the guys sitting next to me, they're like, they're looking, they're watching, they're trying to see what's happening because they're the analysts, you know, they've been there and felt it. So that's their job to tune in for that. But in terms of like how things get loud or not, it depends on the environment. Obviously, Fight Island and the Apex are different from UFC Paris, which was absolutely bonkers. But even then, there are those moments where I guess certain kicks, when people land a certain way. I think I can remember when Jimmy Manuwa, bless him, landed after Alexander Rakic hit him with a head kick. You know, that those things, it all becomes very bloody real, you know, in those moments. So you do, and it's my job, right, to try and communicate something that's out of the ordinary, something that we've sensed that is worth our attention, perhaps more than we would typically get.
Right. Now, you mentioned UFC Paris was a crazy crowd. Was that your favorite crowd that you ever commentated for? Or if it wasn't, what was a better one?
There's been some tight ones. I think that the two Paris events, just outstanding. The crowd participation, just outstanding. And you also kind of need results to go in the way of the local fighters for the kind of just the overall ramping up, like the culmination, and everything's compounding. So then you get fever pitch with Cyril Gann and Tai Tuivasa. I will never forget that fight because the two guys almost stopped fighting for a couple of seconds because the crowd was singing the national anthem a cappella style. I've since then spoken to French media, and fans don't often do that at sporting events. That's rare. So that kind of made it even more special for me. London, home crowd, kind of get the vibe, cultural nuances. So when I've heard those guys going absolutely nuts for it, and I've got friends in the crowd as well, that's a special moment. I grew up with the explosion of Irish mixed martial arts, a little bit Irish myself as well, so a soft spot for the success that they've achieved, and of course Conor McGregor. So that 2014 crowd in Dublin will be etched into my memory, and one of my proudest moments, really, behind the microphone. So there's a few. I've got to shout out Perth. I was there last year. That they were insane. I was backstage. I wasn't in commentary, but they were a really electric crowd as well.
Right. Now, how was it to be there for Conor McGregor's rise?
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, it's all serendipitous, but I'm not sure if I'd be sitting here talking to you if it wasn't for Conor McGregor's rise, Michael Bisping's rise, because I essentially was on the call for this Irish athlete that was knocking all of his opponents out and then grabbed the attention of the UFC. Then when they maybe start looking at the fights and they're also starting to expand things out, you know, who's out there, what broadcasts are doing this thing in MMA. And then if you then go, oh, this guy, okay, Droz, oh, that was kind of a good. So I think if you start putting things together, it then makes my CV seem a lot more, or my resume seem a lot more credible. So that was very special. But it wasn't just Conor. Obviously, John Kavanagh had a stable of guys from Owen Roddy, Ash Daly, Chris Fields, Cathal Pendred. You've got to say Gunnar Nelson is in there as well. Paddy Holohan was coming a little bit later, but those guys were doing big things, and they all looked like they were world beaters. All of them, I think, had titles at Cage Warriors, and Conor was another one. Special, don't get me wrong, but he was one of a pack. And then obviously, you know, he just, what he's achieved now is just blows my mind. I mean, it's incredible. What an incredible case study, and what a special thing to have been around and witnessed, and certainly in the early part of his career, been a little bit close to as well.
Right. Yeah, no, Conor McGregor is definitely a special athlete. Now, you were also there, too, for a pretty special moment with Joaquin Buckley and his 360 back kick knockout. Walk us
Yeah.
through that call and what it was like to see that live.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was jaw dropping, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just unbelievably creative, athletic, technically perfect. And he, if he'd have done that in the Apex in 2024, it's not the same. He
No.
did it on Fight Island during the pandemic when the world was watching. Like the timing of that was really, really special. I mean, I know that's real life ninja stuff is a funny old call. I don't know where it came from. I actually created a t-shirt for like a charitable concern after that to help raise money to give to UK MMA gyms, but I've still kept real life ninjas as a brand going. And I have plans for it. I'm just really busy and happy doing what I'm doing, work and personal life at the moment. But and I only that wasn't a plug. It was more like
Mhm.
that again is a moment that will stick with me, and I'm kind of almost leveraging it in a way. And I feel like I got a decent relationship with Buckley as well, and I think that that comes from that moment. He's I
Absolutely.
think he's hilarious. He's a really nice fella as well. I've seen him like on the road in Paris, like spending a lot of time with kids and like the French public when he was facing their guys. He's smart, great fighter, like him a lot.
Right. Now, you mentioned too in another podcast that sometimes you'll have good cards and bad cards. What determines in your mind like what it was a like good card that you called or a bad card that you called?
As in that, I think that would probably be my personal performance rather than
Yes.
the
Yes. Mhm.
quality of the fights. Yeah. Um, well, it's always difficult, right? It's always difficult to set yourself up for consistently good broadcasting appearances, especially when I've got to travel across the world to do so. So you're fighting certain things off the bat. So it's up to me to try and by the way, this is that it's up to me whether I want to take that challenge on. I'm certainly not having dig, and I like the travel. It's opened my eyes and developed me as a human being. But you've got to get yourself in a really good position to be successful with that. So you got to mind what you're eating, and then all of these things because that can really put you on tilt. Now, my own personal performances, it sometimes depends on the booth. If someone's having a bad week who I'm commentating alongside, then that's going to affect the overall vibe. But as the lead guy, and as someone in the past who's been like a project manager, I'll always take a kind of leadership role. It's up to me to try and get the vibe right, get the balance right in the booth, open the co-commentators up in such a way that we can entertain and educate at the same time. And if I don't feel like I've gotten the balance on that, if I don't feel like I've delivered appropriately on what the producers are telling me, and you guys don't really hear what they're trying to lead me into, if I fluff my lines, if I'm getting these promo reads wrong, so I try and burn through the promos like as quickly as I can, but I'm not a fast talker. So then I start stumbling a bit and I'll kick myself because it's less speed, more haste and all that. Is that the appropriate verbiage? So there's all of these just the nuances of the production. And then the fights, if I've not represented an athlete well, if I've not represented the scoring criteria, if I've gone in too hard on a referee or maybe or the judges, then I'm not particularly proud of myself for getting caught up in those moments. So it's trying to just find that really good balance. And in life, balance is almost seemingly impossible, but we will always do our best and strive to get there.
Absolutely. Now, John, you mentioned you've been on the mat since you were 7 years old, and I mentioned to you when I was setting up this interview that I'm a Taekwondo instructor and I teach about 150 students at my location. My question to you is, how do you get those students every day to keep coming every day and to keep getting them to improve every day to earn their black belt or to just be the best version of themselves?
I think you need to have a positive environment. I think if it's a negative environment, you're not going to want to go back. I think a positive environment, a competitive environment as well, and it's also got to be socially fun. I think I'm so passionate about MMA because of it's the people within it as well. And if I wasn't so close to my current coach and previous coaches, I wouldn't have felt the need to join this sport and start talking about this sport and maybe, you know, pop up with a microphone, step on the stage, whatever it might be. So I think those elements are really important in order to have the environment in which you can just enjoy yourself, but also flourish at the same time.
It's pretty wild. I just got done an interview with former tough contender Joe Giannetti, and I asked him the same exact question, and he gave me almost the exact same answer, that you really need a positive environment. You need to be joking on the mats. Nobody needs an ego, and that's kind of the best base to kind of getting started as a martial artist. So I think it's pretty interesting that I just got done that, and he mentioned pretty much a lot of the same things.
Well, and he's a lot better than me, right? So I'm glad that I'm singing on the same song sheet. Yeah, I'll just give a shout out to my coach David Lee, who is a joker. You know, I feel like if he did fight in the UFC, but if it had gone through like the tough house, he would be a way bigger kind of social personality just because he's crazy Dave Lee. And I think sometimes he lets the guys get away with a little bit too much, but he'll let you know. But he's not a strict kind of sensei type. Even if I was to call him Professor, he's a third-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, he's a black belt karate, he's got black belts all over the place. But if I was to approach him like that, he'd be like, no, he's unhappy with that. But I call him up as he's more than just the coach, you know. So I think that's another reason why I've stuck with the sport and with his team in particular.
That's incredible. John, so last message to any of the fans that are going to be tuning into this video.
Well, first of all, thank you for clicking play and sticking around for it. I might not be the guy that's out there doing a bunch of stuff on the socials, but I appreciate all the fans in this sport. I am one of those first and foremost, and yeah, I hope I'm representing, and I hope I'm delivering all of those notes. And I'm always interested in connecting with fans if they want to talk more about the fights or the broadcasting side, whatever it might be. If I can, I'll certainly help out and get involved.
Yep. Well, yeah, John, we appreciate it. And it was definitely fun to kind of ask you some questions and kind of see a different side of things. I definitely enjoyed it. And hopefully we can connect again and maybe do another one in the future.
100%. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, man, no problem. All right, John, take care. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Yeah, man. See you later.